Describe a trip you were looking forward to, but which was delayed. That is the new IELTS speaking question, which I think is quite complicated. And in this video, we're going to look at that question. I'm going to give you some great vocabulary to help you answer it. And I'll show you my full Band 9 answer to that question and teach you how to read it in perfect English pronunciation and with great English fluency. So, if that sounds good, let's get started. So, hello, welcome to the video. If this is your first time on our channel, then welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm Francis from Last Minute English. I used to be an IELTS examiner, and on this channel, I help you to improve your English exam score, exams like IELTS and Duolingo, and reach advanced level English. So if that sounds good, make sure you subscribe because we have loads of videos coming out all the time. So today we're talking about the question, describe a trip which you were looking forward to, but which was delayed. Let's look at some high-level vocabulary now. So the first phrase we can use is home comforts. Home comforts means the feeling that you have from being in your own house and having all of your normal things. So if you've been traveling for like several weeks, you might want to get back to your home comforts. Number two is a phrase, which is, we didn't think anything of it. And the stress is on of. We didn't think anything of it. And that means when we got some information, maybe some news, we didn't think that it was important at first. But the feeling is that later we found out that that was actually something big. So the news came, we thought, not very important. But later we found out, yes, actually, very important. The next one is, I think, a phrase that you can use for this answer all about your trip being delayed, which is, we got the dreaded from. So here it would be, we got the dreaded email, but it could be a dreaded phone call. It could be a dreaded message. And the meaning is, we got the message that we didn't want to get, which told us that the flight or the train was cancelled. Then we've got a great phrase which we can use in many situations for the foreseeable future. For the foreseeable future. That means for the future as far as we know. Now the next one is useful if you're like me and you tend to talk too much and go and talk about many other things. You can use this phrase to bring yourself back to the end of the story. You can say, to cut a long story short. So to cut a long story short, and then you say the result of the story. And then the last one is another great phrase for when someone's very happy. You can say they're absolutely over the moon. Absolutely over the moon. So that's vocabulary. Now let's look at the full answer. And you can see that this answer has two special things about it. So first of all, some words are highlighted. Those are the words which either have a strong feeling or an important meaning. So we're going to stress those words. And then other words are underlined. Those are words that are not very important, but we have to say them to make the sentence grammatically correct. So with those words, we're going to squash them together. Now we're going to go through, we'll analyze, we'll talk about the answer first, and then later I'll give you a chance to follow me reading this answer, okay? So let's jump in. So the trip that I'd like to, becomes that I'd like to, the trip that I'd like to talk about, which was repeatedly delayed. So delayed again and again, repeatedly delayed. So we're stressing that word repeatedly. Repeatedly delayed was my journey from Colombia back to China. This happened at the start of the pandemic in early 2020. So what you can notice is that the stressed words are those important meaning words here. Let's look at the next part. My wife and I were living in China at the time. So at the time becomes at the time, at the time. But we'd gone on a long holiday to Colombia to escape the winter in Beijing. And that's that sentence with great tense, a mix of different tenses. And an important detail to know here, so and becomes an important detail to know here is that we'd left our dog in a dog hotel while we were away. While we were away. That's really, it sounds like a dog. Whoa. Sounds like a dog talking. While we were away. So we left our dog in a dog hotel while we were away. This is a true story, by the way. We'd had an, again, past perfect tense. We'd had an incredible time in Colombia, but we were definitely ready for home comforts and to sleep in our own bed again. Not to mention reuniting with our dog. Then the next, we were due to means we had planned to. We were due to fly back in early February 2020, but then we got the dreaded email from the airline. Your flight has been cancelled. So the dreaded email, that's a strong feeling word. At first, we didn't think anything of it. Notice again, the way that we say this, we're putting the stress on of. That's just the natural way that we read this fixed expression. We didn't think anything of it. We thought, let's have another nice week in Colombia and we'll just get back a week later to our dog. A week later. But then we tried rebooking the flight for the following week. We tried rebooking the flight for the following week. And we found out, to our horror, that means we got very bad news. We found out, to our horror, that all flights had been cancelled for the foreseeable future. For the foreseeable future. So, to cut a long story short, that great phrase, we had to stay in Colombia for over a year. But to be fair, to be becomes to be. To be fair, it was a really nice place to shelter from the storm of the pandemic. And when we finally got our dog back, he was absolutely over the moon to see us. He was very, very happy. Also a true story. So that was the trip that was delayed. Okay, so now we've taken a look and hopefully you understand the answer pretty well. Let's read through again. Now we're going to do something special. I want you to take part in this video. So I will read 1 or 2 sentences in my normal natural speaking voice and speed. And I want you to stop the video after that. I'll leave a short space for you. You stop it and you read it just as I read it. Okay? Let's have a try. So the trip that I'd like to talk about, which was repeatedly delayed, was my journey from Colombia back to China. This happened at the start of the pandemic in early 2020. All right, now it's your turn. So stop the video and say that several times, copying my intonation and my pronunciation. Okay? Pause. Try now. Okay, so let's continue. My wife and I were living in China at the time, but we'd gone on a long holiday to Colombia to escape the winter in Beijing. And an important detail to know here is that we'd left our dog in a dog hotel while we were away. Your turn. All right, very good. We'd had an incredible time in Colombia, but we were definitely ready for home comforts and to sleep in our own bed again, not to mention reuniting with our dog. Your turn. All right. We were due to fly back in early February 2020, but then we got the dreaded email from the airline. Your flight has been cancelled. You have a try. Good. At first, we didn't think anything of it. We thought, let's have another nice week in Colombia, and we'll just get back a week later to our dog. All right. But then we tried rebooking the flight for the following week, and we found out, to our horror, that all flights had been cancelled for the foreseeable future. So, to cut a long story short, we had to stay in Colombia for over a year. Now that's a hard one, so practice that one several times. All right, very good. But to be fair, it was a really nice place to shelter from the storm of the pandemic. And when we finally got our dog back, he was absolutely over the moon to see us. So that was the trip that was delayed. Have a try. Okay, very good. And as I always say in these videos, it's really important not just to try this once, but make sure you come back and you keep repeating and keep repeating. The more times you try to do that activity, the better your pronunciation will be and the better your fluency will be. So that is our Band 9 answer, all about the trip you were looking forward to, but which was delayed. And what you can notice as well is that my answer is a little bit more open than maybe your idea of the question. So you might think, oh, you should be at home, and then your trip to somewhere else gets cancelled or delayed. Actually, my trip, I was already away, and my trip home was cancelled. So something like that, a little bit more flexibility is okay. But don't go too far from the question, because then the examiner will start to say, you're not really answering the question, and your score starts to go down. If you found this video useful, please make sure to subscribe and also like the video, because we've got loads more videos just like this coming out very soon. And if you're preparing for your IELTS exam, we've got a great playlist with loads of videos just like this one to help you get the best score possible. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Francis from Last Minute English. Good luck with your IELTS preparation. I'll see you next time.